Now, as you know, I will be speaking on reclaiming women's voices in historical perspective. So, just before coming to the topic, I would recite Amrita Pritam's poetry, and which will reflect that what I want to say and how women are feeling. अमृता प्रीतम का कहना है, वो कहता था, वो सुनती थी, जारी था एक खेल कहने सुनने का, खेल में थी दो पर्चियां, एक में लिखा था कहो, एक में लिखा था सुनो। अब यह नियति थी या महज संयोग, उसके हाथ लगती रही वही पर्ची जिस पर लिखा था सुनो। वह सुनती रही, उसने सुने आदेश, उसने सुने उपदेश, बंदिशें उसके लिए थी वर्जनाएं। वो जानती थी कहना सुनना नहीं है केवल क्रियाएं। राजा ने कहा जहर पियो, वह मीरा हो गई। ऋषि ने कहा पत्थर बनो, वह अहिल्या हो गई। प्रभु ने कहा निकल जाओ, वह सीता हो गई। चिता से निकली चीख किन्हीं कानों ने नहीं सुनी, वह सती हो गई। 3 बार तलाक कहा तो परित्यक्ता हो गई। घुटती रही उसकी फरियाद, अटके रहे शब्द, सिले रहे होंठ, रुंधा रहा गला। उसके हाथ कभी नहीं लगी वो पर्ची जिस पर लिखा था कहो। तो what I feel, this is very appropriate point by Amrita Pritam when we talk about women's voices. And when I say women's voices, they should not be understood in narrow perspective, that is protest only. सिर्फ protest से मतलब नहीं है. Rather, ये voices जो हैं, these are mixtures of expression of their perception over certain issues and expression of strong and radical views on other issues. She is conscious about socio-economic conditions. She is conscious about various traditions, and she is voicing against many customs and practices. That is very important, because when we hear the lectures, we see there is appreciation of only traditional women. कौन सी औरत अच्छी है? वो जो सुबह सबसे पहले उठती है, घर के हर सदस्य के जरूरतों का ख्याल रखती है और सबसे बाद में सोने जाती है, और जो कई पुत्रों को जन्म देती है। तो जिसने पुत्र को जन्म नहीं दिया वो अच्छी औरत नहीं हो सकती। तो ये ट्रेडिशनल व्यूज हैं, लेकिन हम ये देखते हैं कि जैसे मनु है, कौटिल्य, तुलसी, medieval historians, Isami, they praised women as mother, as wife, but otherwise we see that they are having very low position in the society. Because I'll start with Tulsidas. All of us know what Tulsidas has said, that is very oft repeated version, but still I will like to start with that. तुलसीदास जी का कहना है, ढोल गंवार शूद्र पशु नारी ये सब ताड़न के अधिकारी. And very interestingly, Sayyidi Ali, he has quoted a Turkish verse by Hamdi with approval, obviously, and he writes, if you are a man, don't believe a woman, my brother. Women have even misled the prophets. So that is the power of women which we see. Then Babar cites Sadi's Gulistan Bustan, and a verse I will cite here, which Babar has written in his Babarnama, that a bad wife in a good man's house makes this world already his hell. Then there is another verse by Abdul Ghani of Badaयूं, who says, who are the robbers whom we encounter on our road to God? These robbers are no other than women. So you can understand that this kind of verses, these kinds of expressions, we do find very often in the writings. Even Amir Khusro, who was otherwise very enlightened-minded person. He has written that when his daughter was born, he wrote, "Oh daughter, why have you been born? If at all you had to be born, it would have been much better if you could be a son rather than daughter." And after some time, he regains composure and says, "Oh, never mind, my mother was also a daughter." So he takes strength from his mother rather than welcoming the daughter independently. All of us know that woman is a very significant component of any society. But in India, when we see, they are deprived, they are uneducated, they are resourceless, and they are generally victims. But despite that, many people in India, they say that gender is a Western concept. We do not require, why should we talk about gender? And they give examples, they start giving examples from ancient India, that there were a number of women scholars, number of women rulers, and then of repeatedly named Gargi, Maitreya, Pala, Goshala, etc., etc. Then when we look at mythology, folklore, we see that woman is honored, she is respected. And we are told that there is a shloka, Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devata. But it is essential to see that whether woman is visible in historical narratives or not. There are 2 points of view. From nationalist historical concern, she is present because in national movement, we see the direct participation of a number of women. But from feminist point of view, we find that she is absent. We only pick and choose, and only few examples given, not mention other things. So my aim is to balance the idea that what is the position, how can we read our historical sources. I won't go into detail how women's role as mother and wife praised, because this is not my concern at this point of time. But as an individual, we do find that she was having low social position. Here, my focus will be, is she registering her presence in the historical writings, historical narratives? That is my main concern. And we have to see from one point of view, past is present and present is past. इस चीज को हमें हमेशा ध्यान में रखना है. एंड जैसे हमें देखते हैं वैलेंटाइंस डे 14 फरवरी, हमेशा हमारे यहाँ बड़ा हंगामा रहता है उस दिन. बजरंग दल और दूसरे जिस तरह के संगठन है हिंदूवादी, वो उस पर कहते हैं कि नहीं, ये हमारी सभ्यता नहीं है, दिस इज नॉट आवर कल्चर, सो वी शुड नॉट सेलिब्रेट. और काफी मार कुटाई बच्चों के साथ में होती है. तो ये माइंड सेट है, इसमें हिंदू मुस्लिम क्रिश्चियन का सवाल नहीं है, बट सवाल ये है कि माइंड सेट क्यों है. इज इट देयर इज हिस्टोरिकल ट्रेडिशन और इट इज अ न्यू फेनोमेना which we do find. And through the ages, हमने ये देखा है कि जिसने भी लकीर से हटकर कोई बात की है और नई बात की है, उस नई राह पर चलने की कोशिश की है, उसे always she or he has to face the criticism or protest. Legitimacy, हमेशा ऐसे लोग किससे लेते हैं? Religion and nationalism से they take the legitimacy. So we find, मेरा जो discourse है, we have to understand in present time with the context of past, और उसको समझने की भी जरूरत है. ये मेरा यहाँ पे contention है. Similar to other marginalized groups, women is also thought to be conspicuous by her absence in the historical narratives. Why? Because these were written by men. So women's issues, their contribution, needs, desires, emotions are seen through male gaze. Medieval Indian history sources, because I'm from medieval India, so I will be concentrate on medieval India basically. These sources contain narratives of those who were in power. Earlier, when we see history writing, all of you know that earlier there was focus on political history, kings, their invasions, political institutions, and administrations were taken into account. It was followed by social history. Their focus was on social reforms, laws, revivalist movements, particularly religious revivalist movements. Then economic history under Marxist influence was written, and there was focus on class struggle. All of us know these are oft repeated things, but all these writings under different historiographical trends, if we see, were male centric, not female centric. Even the subaltern concentrated on powerless but left out the most powerless, that is women, etc. Then we see a change in 1960s and 1970s because there were women's movements all over the world. I will not go into detail, but you know that whether this was America, whether this was Europe, everywhere there were women's movements, and it resulted in construction of women's history, and interest in women's history started. People were attracted towards this. So different experience of women were taken into account. And for that, alternative sources were used. Through these writings, through these alternative sources, one gets to know the vision of women. For modern Indian historians, a large number of women's autobiographies are available, in which women weaved their innermost thoughts into words, expressed their emotions, anger, frustration against patriarchal hegemony. And here I will give one example only. There are lots and lots of examples from 19th, 20th century autobiographies. My favorite autobiography is of Tarabai Shende, and she has written in Marathi in 1881, which has been translated into English, and the translation is entitled as A Comparison Between Women and Men. This is translated by Rosalindo Hanalon, and here she writes, you can understand her anguish, you can see her frustration about the patriarchal society. I quote her, she says, you level women with all sorts of insulting names, calling them utterly feeble, stupid, bold, thoughtless. You shut them up endlessly in the prison of home, while you go about building up your own importance, starting from childhood. You collect all rights in your hands, and women kind you just push in a dark corner, far from the real world, shut up in parda, frightened, sat on, dominated, as if she was a female slave. Learning is not for women. She is warning that women also requires the same kind of learning as that of men. For medieval period, one hardly gets hold of such daring autobiographies, especially written by women. When we say that autobiographies have been written by women, we only cite one name, that is Gulbadan Begum. She has written Humayun-Nama, that too after asked by Akbar, that whatever you remember, he ordered everyone, that whatever anyone has remembered about the past, about Humayun, about Babur, about other things, they should bring it into writing. So how history writing started during Akbar's period. So Gulbadan Begum, his aunt, she wrote Humayun-Nama. This is very interesting again. What? This is a normative history. She is very happy in the environments of harem. She is safe, she is secure, she is getting everything, whatever. So we cannot say that this is the autobiography which we require to understand the position of women. So other imperial sources, if we see, which were written in Persian, are ruler-centric. But luckily, if you read between the lines, you find very interesting information, even in these imperial sources, which give interesting information depicting women's emotions, their independent views on certain socio-political issues, their protest against prevailing customs, norms, and traditions, which are depicted with examples. I will try to put my study before you so that we can discuss these things, and many voices are reclaimed from these sources. A number of powerful women in the historical narratives are found. These women took independent decisions and spoke of their mind. I'll start with Chachnama, which was early 8th century historical source on sin. Originally, it was written in Arabic. Later on, it was translated into Persian, and now it is available. Its translation is in English also. So, when we read this Chachnama, Chach was ruler of Sindh. So, when the Chach, who was earlier Chamberlain, went to meet King of Sindh, Sasi Rai, in his private apartment to apprise of him some important state matters, the king asked his chief queen, Sohandi, to go behind a curtain as a stranger was coming. So here he is asking his wife not to be present in the presence of the other man. But what is the reaction of queen? The queen retorted, so many inferior people come in. If a Brahman comes, what inclination am I likely to have towards him? And why should I feel shy and conceal myself from him? And she stayed there. She did not obey king's order to go away from there. So how independent she was behaving. On another occasion, after the death of Rai Sasi, Chach was made the king, and when he was made the king, Rai Sasi's brother challenged him and came to fight with him. Chach went to the Queen Sohandi and asked for her counsel. Look at her answer. She said, if I am to go and fight, put on my clothes and sit here and give me your garments that I may go forth to battle. Wise men have said that when a person is elevated to a responsible position, he conducts it efficiently and ably only when he acquires the skill and intelligence required for it. When the kingdom has fallen at your feet, what do you require from me? Why should I give you advice? Go and fight bravely, for death will bring honor and glory, which is better than living despised by an equal. So this was the reply. But if you say that this is an exception, no. Queen Swandi was no exception. Another important woman which I would discuss here is Razia Sultan. All of you know about Razia Sultan, and it is interesting that how she convinced the people of Delhi to side with her against the reigning ruler. She chose Friday. Today is also Friday. She also chose Friday, namaz time, and she wore red garments which were worn by aggrieved party. And she went on the parapet of masjid, and from there she addressed the people of Delhi and said that my father, King Iltutmish, he wanted me to become the Sultan, but you see, my brother has usurped it. And people sided with her, and she became the ruler. And she very ably conducted the work of the state, and we find she discarded the parda. She dressed with male attire. She rode horses and fought bravely. Her contemporary historian, Minhas Siraj, praises her like anything, but he says that she is endowed with all the qualities any ruler should have. But her greatest disqualification was that she was a woman. So that was her greatest disqualification. And her name was linked with Yakut, her slave. So this is not a new phenomenon. Even today, अगर किसी भी औरत के खिलाफ कुछ कहना तो ये लांछन लगाना तो it is very easy character assassination we do find. So Razia was no exception. She also faced this character assassination. Then if we see another source, Vakaya Sarkar Ranthambor Vajmer, these are daily reports written by the governor to the center in 1678-80. And these contain the details of correspondence between Aurangzeb and Queen of Marwar, Jaswant Singh's wife, Rani Hadi, over the issue of Tika, because Aurangzeb was intending to give the Tika or the rulership suzerainty to the house of Nagaur. And Queen Hadi Rani, she was objecting to it, and she said that because she said that whatever you want to do with the territory of Marwar, you can include it into Khalsa, you can demolish the temples, you can do anything, but Tika should be in the family of Raja Jaswant Singh. She was having backing of the Sardars of Jodhpur, and that is why we find that she was able to fight like this with Aurangzeb. There are many more instances when women played significant role in statecraft, and not only in India, Vadaksha and South Asia, and in many places we do find there are plenty of examples where women participated in this statecraft. We do come across the cases where women's voice was heard against imperial decisions also. For example, Emperor Akbar, his mother, she intervened when Akbar got angry with 70-year-old Sheikh Hussain, a descendant of Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti, and did not allow him to go back to Ajmer. Instead, he granted him Madad March and sent him to Bhakkar. Hamida Banu Begum, Akbar's mother, she intervened in favor of the Sheikh and told Akbar that my son, he has an aged mother in Ajmer whose heart yearns to see her son again. How would it be if you were to give him leave to depart to Ajmer? He desires no mother demash from you. Though Akbar, हम जानते हैं अकबर हमेशा अपनी माँ की बहुत इज्जत करता था, लेकिन this time Akbar did not agree to the suggestion of his mother. Rather, he said that ask Sheikh that he should summon his mother in Bhakkar rather than he should go. So we find that this kind of information, because sources are not read from this point of view. Then Gulbatan Begum, she explains that while Humayun was on run from India, he was in Persia. So his brother Mirza Kamran confined all the royal women in a house. When he heard that Humayun was returning, then Kamran sent for Gulbadan Begum and asked her to please stay with me and also write to your husband that he should join me. She said, why should I write? I had never written to him. He will not recognize my writing letter. And when her husband finally came, she advised her husband not to abandon Humayun and comply with his orders. So this kind of advice also we do find information. Similarly, again, Manuchi, because for Manuchi's writings, these are very, very important, though there is debate that these are the bazaar gossips. But even if we say bazaar gossips, these reflect the mindset of the people, that what kind of talks were there. So when Aurangzeb was suggested by the ulama to impose jizya or poll tax, his sister Jahanara Begum visited Aurangzeb personally and suggested him that he should not implement the jizya, because if you overburden people of India and provoke their waves by their unaccustomed demand, abandon then this purpose, lest there be a rebellion in this kingdom. By its violence, poor and persecuted people are ruined. She tried to dissuade Aurangzeb even on the issue of jizya. So that is also very, very significant. Also, very interestingly, in 1666, when ulama asked Aurangzeb to enforce a law according to which women were debarred from wearing tight trousers and could not drink alcohol or eating bhang, opium, etc., Jahanara invited the wives of the Qazis at her place. She also invited Aurangzeb and took him inside and showed him the wives of Qazis in drunken state, wearing tight trousers. And she told him that the mullahs ought to have regulated their own household before advising Aurangzeb to take such action. So law was never enforced. So there is resistance by the women also on these issues. Then also on economic front, when we see women's role, Akbar's wife, she advised him to ban slave trade because earlier number of slaves were sent to other countries. She asked him to ban because otherwise there should be scarcity of human resource in India, which would hamper the economic growth. And Akbar, he banned the slave trade. One gets the ramblings of wife, her complaint, of protest also, because there are a number of informations, but I'm cutting short few things because these are interesting information when you read for yourself and you understand this. When Humayun, along with royal women, was staying in a garden, pleasure garden, he used to visit his elderly relations every evening, where all ladies used to assemble. In one evening, when Humayun was there and he slept there in the morning, when he was doing ablution, his wife Begum, she complained that daily you come, but you never come to our tents. You go to your elderly relations, your sisters, your aunts. Thorns have not, these are within inverted commas, thorns have not been planted on the path. You should also visit our place. Humayun got angry. He did not say anything. But in the evening, again, when all women assembled, he brought out the issue and asked Begum, what were you telling in the morning? बताइए अब इस वक्त दोबारा से बताइए. और उसके बाद मैं कहा कि मुझे तो जितना ध्यान देना चाहिए अपनी एल्डरली रिलेशंस पे उतना ध्यान तो मैं दे ही नहीं पाता हूँ, और तुम इस तरह की कंप्लेन कर रही हो. तुम सब मुझे राइटिंग में लिख के दो कि आगे से इस तरह की कोई कंप्लेन नहीं करेंगी. So all timid wives, they wrote immediately, but Bega Begum was Haji Begum who constructed Humayun tomb. So you can understand that she was a powerful lady. She said, wow, कंप्लेन तो और भी, मतलब कंप्लेन करना तो और ज्यादा खतरनाक रहा कि आप हम ही से माफी मंगवा रहे हैं. And she never got about this, and obviously Humayun did not take any further action. Similarly, when we see the misbehavior with the wives, royalty was no exception. Prince Bedar Bakht, who was a grandson of Aurangzeb, he often used to treat his wife with displeasure. One day he said that to her, you are a daughter of a rascal. You should not show such pride to princes like me. Then the wife immediately replied, if you like, you may slay me, but I shall not speak to you again. मैं जिंदगी में आपसे अब कभी भी बात नहीं करूंगी. From that day, she gave up speaking to him. When Aurangzeb was informed, he admonished his grandson and wrote him that calling a Sayyad a Paji is simply an act like Paji. लेकिन यहाँ पे मेरा कहने का मतलब आज भी अगर हमारे हस्बैंड्स हमारे घर वालों को कुछ कहते हैं तो इसी तरह का रिएक्शन हम लोग भी करते हैं. तो ये कोई नई चीज नहीं है. हिस्ट्री फ्रॉम द पास्ट is history from the present also. So it is also important to know that such voices are not confined to royal women alone, but sources furnish similar kind of voices which were emitted by common women. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल अबुल फजल का जब आप अकबरनामा पढ़ते हैं तो उसने लिखा है कि 1560, क्योंकि 1560 अकबर का काफी अर्ली पीरियड था, काफी उथल पुथल थी उस जमाने में. तो यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट अबुल माली ही वाज अ रिबेल एंड ही टुक शेल्टर विद वन तुलक इन मुल्तान हु वाज अ सर्वेंट ऑफ बहादुर खान, वेयर ही वाज कंसील्ड, and for a long time he was preparing for a disturbance. Tulak's wife, she was disgusted and she informed Bahadur Khan that my husband has concealed Abul Mali in our house and they intend to kill him. Bahadur Khan immediately took action, captured Abul Mali and killed her husband Tulak. This kind of information is also available. Molestation, आज हम rape, molestation ये सारी बात करते हैं. These are not new phenomena. Women complained and action was also taken. क्योंकि select documents of Deccan, when you read this, you find that there is example that in Deccan, 2 Banjaras, they assaulted a woman indecently in the jungle on 1st July 1661. The woman sued them and there was investigation. After investigation, crime was proved against them and they were punished. यहाँ पे गुड गवर्नेंस की भी बात आती है कि वीमेन ने कंप्लेन किया, उस पे पूरा एक इंटेरोगेशन हुआ, इन्वेस्टिगेशन हुआ. ऐसे नहीं कि किसी के भी कहने से किसी को भी सजा दे दी गई, ऐसा हम लोगों को नहीं नजर आता. इसी संदर्भ में अगर मैं एक दूसरा और एग्जांपल दूं तो शाहजहां when he was passing through UP going to Bihar, we find that he found कि एक गांव में बड़ी पंचायत लगी हुई है और वहां पे बहुत लोग जमा हैं. शाहजहां इंक्वायर्ड, ये शाहजहां नामा में है, दिस इज रिटन इन शाहजहां नामा. तो शाहजहां ने इंक्वायर किया, पता लगा कि और एक औरत ने रेप की कंप्लेन की है और उसके खिलाफ आदमी पे मुकदमा चल रहा है और उसको फांसी की सजा दी जा रही है. शाहजहां टुक इंटरेस्ट, ही इंक्वायर्ड, पूरा इन्वेस्टिगेशन करवाया और पता लगा कि उस औरत ने किसी जेलसी के माध्यम से उस आदमी पे गलत मुकदमा दायर किया है. तो आज हम देखते हैं ना बहुत बार कि गलत मुकदमे होते हैं. तो इट्स नॉट न्यू फेनोमेना. अगेन वी डू फाइंड हिस्टोरिकल एविडेंसेस दैट these women were also there and women was punished. तो इस तरह का गुड गवर्नेंस की बात हम जब करते हैं मुगल पीरियड में, so these are some examples. Then we do find during Balban's period that an old woman, her son was implicated in false cases. He was 18 years old only and he was punished to death. She tried very hard that he should be not punished, but he was punished. And we find that Isami, contemporary historian, he writes in his Futuh Salatin that every night after that punishment, every night this woman, she appeared before the imperial palace to bemoan the death of her only son and demanded divine punishment for Sultan Balban. Her pathetic cries disturbed the Sultan very much. वो सो भी नहीं पाता था, and we find she was not deterred. She was not afraid of punishment. She was not tempted by gold. She continued to come every night और खूब गालियां और बद्दुआएं बलबन को देती थी. But suddenly, after the death of Crown Prince Sultan Muhammad, Balban's son, she disappeared. She was never seen. And though Balban tried very hard to find her, but she was never to be found. But here, my point is that woman, she was venting her anger against even the ruler about the wrong punishment. Then there is another very interesting information about a Bania woman. When this Bania died during Shah Jahan's period, his son, he wanted to get hold of his property, his money. But his mother refused on account of being extravagant. Then this son, he informed Shah Jahan with the real amount his father had left. क्योंकि real amount तो छुपाया जाता था ना, otherwise taxes देने पड़ते थे. So the emperor immediately called the woman and ordered her to deposit the money in the treasury and give rupees 50,000 to her son and ordered her to leave. She struggled and said, "It is not perhaps without reason that my son claims the property. He is our heir." मेरा बेटा अगर क्लेम कर रहा है प्रॉपर्टी को तो उसका ये अधिकार है क्योंकि वो हमारा उत्तराधिकारी है. लेकिन आपसे हमारी क्या रिलेशनशिप है? What kinship there may have been between your majesty and my deceased husband to warrant the demand of 100,000 rupees? आप क्यों इतना पैसा हमसे मांग रहे हैं? शाहजहां नाराज होने की बजाय he appreciated this argument. He laughed and commanded that widow should be left in undisturbed manner. तो इस तरह की इंफॉर्मेशन भी हम लोगों को मिलती है सोर्सेस में. अब अगर हम सती की बात करें, ऑल ऑफ यू नो, अगर आप किसी से भी पूछते हैं, जैसे ताराबाई शिंदे ने भी लिखा है कि अगर हमसे कहा जाए कि ब्रिटिश रूल खत्म होना चाहिए या नहीं, तो सारी वीमेन जो हैं वो ब्रिटिश रूल के फेवर में वोट देंगी. इसलिए देंगी कि उन्होंने सती प्रथा खत्म की, इसलिए देंगी कि उन्होंने वीमेन के उत्थान के लिए काम किए हैं. सो दैट इज वाई. लेकिन हम तो हिस्ट्री के स्टूडेंट्स हैं, तो हम जानते हैं कि स्टेज किसने तैयार सती के लिए. 1931 में रूल बना, लॉ बना, लेकिन उससे पहले स्टेज एक किसने तय किया? तो स्टेज जो है 1831 सॉरी है, तो स्टेज किसने तैयार किया? मोहम्मद तुगलक के टाइम से हम लोगों को सती के खिलाफ जो इंपीरियल ऑर्डर्स थे वो हम लोगों को मिलते हैं. मोहम्मद तुगलक ने कोशिश की कि सती प्रथा को खत्म किया जाए, लेकिन जाहिर है कोई रूल इतना सख्त नहीं बनाया कि आप नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि ये उनके ट्रेडिशंस में इंटरफेयर करने की बात होती है. उसके बाद में अकबर ने ही ट्राइड वेरी हार्ड कि दिस शुड बी फिनिश्ड. और एग्जाम्पल मिलता है अकबर के भरम से. अकबर के पास में खबर आई, फ्रंटिक खबर आई कि बघेलखंड का राजकुमार जो बीकानेर की राजकुमारी से शादी करके वापस जा रहा था, रास्ते में उसकी डेथ हो गई है और अब उसकी जो राजकुमारी वाइफ वो सती होने जा रही है. शी इज ओनली 16 years old. सो गो एंड सेव हर. अकबर ने बहुत सारे मुगल राजपूत मनसबदारों को अपने साथ में लिया. ही वेंट देयर एंड लिखा है अबुल फजल ने कि बड़ी वॉलेटाइल सिचुएशन थी, लेकिन इस वॉलेटाइल सिचुएशन को बड़ी उससे कूटनीति से शांत किया गया और उस लड़की को सती होने से बचाया. उसके बाद में अकबर ने ऑर्डर किया कि कोई भी औरत अगर सती होना चाहती है तो शी शुड फर्स्ट गो टू द काजी ऑफ द एरिया. काजी उसको डिसुएड करेगा. इफ शी इज नॉट टू बी डिसुएडेड, then obviously she will be permitted and then only she can get sati. इस तरह की इंफॉर्मेशन हम लोगों को मिलती है. और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग इंफॉर्मेशन बर्नियर ने अपने ट्रेवल्स इन मुगल इंडिया में दे रखी है कि वो लिखता है कि मेरे आका दानिशमंद खान, उनके सर्विस में एक हिंदू अहदी था, उसकी डेथ हो गई. पता लगा कि उसकी वाइफ सती होना चाहती है. तो मुझे मेरे आका ने कहा कि यू गो एंड डिसोएड हर. बोला मैं गया. वहाँ बहुत ज्यादा वॉलेटाइल सिचुएशन थी. सारे पंडित जमा थे, सारे घर वाले जमा थे और उस औरत को घेर रखा था बुरी तरह से. और सब आमदा थे इस बात पे कि शी शुड परफॉर्म सती. और वो भी तैयार थी. बोला मैंने उस लेडी को बहुत समझाया कि अगर आप सती नहीं होंगी तो हमारे आका आपका जिंदगी भर फाइनेंशियल मदद करेंगे. लेकिन वो टस से मस नहीं हुई, ना उसके घर वाले टस से मस हुए. तो थोड़ी देर में देखा कि उसका जो बहुत छोटा सा बच्चा था वो रोता हुआ आया और अपनी माँ की गोद में चिपक गया. तो फौरन दैट लेडी सेड आई विल नॉट परफॉर्म सती. मैं नहीं होंगी सती. क्योंकि इसने बर्नियर ने कहा कि अगर अब सती होती हो तो तुम्हारे बच्चे का क्या होगा, इसका कौन देखेगा, और हमारे आका एक पैसा भी नहीं देंगे. एंड शी इमीडिएटली हर रिएक्शन वाज कि नहीं, मैं सती नहीं होंगी. तो इस तरह की कहने का मतलब ये है कि इस तरह की वॉइसेस वी डू फाइंड इन द सोर्सेस एंड देयर इज नीड दैट रिसर्चर्स should concentrate to bring out this kind of information so that entire system can be understood. Were their voices, were these heard, were these only men's voices, or women were also equal partners in crime also? So that is why we find that even in present time में अगर मैं कहूँ कि women is making constant struggle to be heard. In parliament bill, all of you know, regarding women's participation has not seen the light because of apathy of male political domination. They talk about issues like triple talaq कि हमने ये कर दिया. ट्रिपल तलाक पे बहुत ज्यादा बातें होती हैं. But when women show their ability almost in every field, they are maligned. As in past, as I have told you, Razia Sultan, character assassination, Begum Samru, 18th century, we do find she was also linked with a man. They were maligned and faced character assassination. Even today we do find it is no different. Even पंचायतों के अगर आप देखते हैं आर्काइव्स में डॉक्यूमेंट्स, खासतौर से बीकानेर आर्काइव्स में, we do find there are lots and lots of cases पंचायतों के सामने जिसमें शादियों पे डिस्कस होता है, औरतों की राय ली गई है, बच्चों पे डिस्कस होता है, उनकी कस्टडी पे डिस्कस होता है. इवन दूसरे के घर बैठ जाना औरतों की मर्जी पे था, ओनली सम हर्जाना देना पड़ता था. तो दीज डॉक्यूमेंट्स इन बीकानेर स्टेट आर्काइव्स, इन आंध्र प्रदेश आर्काइव्स, these are very very significant. And moreover folk songs, folk literature, that is also very very important. And these songs are sung at the time of birth, marriage, etc. And these contain the voices which will reveal more emotions than anything. यहाँ पे मैं जब folk literature की बात कर रही हूँ तो एक folk story मुझे याद आती है कि कैसे फोक लिटरेचर में भी विमेन को पावरफुल या पावरलेस दर्शाया गया. वी डू फाइंड देयर इज वन स्टोरी ऑफ अ बलोच वुमन. एक बलोच वुमन थी राजस्थान में. उसने अपने फादर से कहा कि मैं कमाने जा रही हूँ. वो घर से निकली और घर से जब निकली तो उसने मर्दाना वेश, मर्दाना कपड़े पहन लिए, बिकॉज इन वीमेन्स अटायर शी कुड नॉट गो आउट. और वो सिंध पहुंच गई, जैसलमेर से. सिंध में पहुंच के वहां के राजा के साथ मिलके उसने घोड़े के जो व्यापारी थे उनसे घोड़े लूटे, क्योंकि आप समझ सकते हैं 16-17 सेंचुरी में घोड़ों की इंपॉर्टेंस और ट्रेड रूट, ये पूरा आप लिंक कर सकते हैं इस चीज को। उन घोड़ों को लूटा और उसके बाद में उनके पास में 21 घोड़े हो गए। एंड देन दे डिसाइडेड कि चलो नाउ वी विल पार्ट आवर वेज, अलग अलग रास्ता करते हैं। तो 10-10 घोड़े बन गए। अब एक घोड़ा जो है, इस लेडी ने वीर पुरुष की तरह उसके 2 टुकड़े किए घोड़े के, तो कहा ये लो, एक तुम एक मैं। अब उसकी आइडेंटिटी तो रिवील करनी है, शी इज अ वुमन। रास्ते में एक तालाब पड़ा, तालाब में जब वो नहाने लगी तो जाहिर है राजा का एक सेवक वहां से गुजरा, उसने देखा ओ शी इज अ वुमन, ही वेंट इमीडिएटली टू हिज मालिक एंड सेड शी इज अ वुमन हु वाज विद अस। राजा आया और वुमन है तो जाहिर है इसका अंत क्या होगा। उसने प्रणय निवेदन किया शादी का, दोनों की किसी तरह, पहले उसने लेडी ने रिफ्यूज किया, बाद में शादी हो गई। क्रक्स ये कि दोनों के 2 बेटे हुए और स्टोरी का एंड इस तरह से होता है, ये दोनों बच्चे अपने पिता की तरह से वीर थे। कहीं नहीं लिखा कि अपनी माँ की तरह से वीर थी। वुमेन जब तक पुरुष के अटायर में थी तब तक उसकी वीरता को रिकॉग्नाइज किया गया, लेकिन जैसे ही ये पता लगा कि शी इज अ वुमन, उसका प्लेस कहाँ पे है, उसका प्लेस है घर में। इसी तरह से एक और स्टोरी है फोक लिटरेचर, ये राजस्थान के, और ये छपे हुए हैं सारे। तो जो फोक लिटरेचर है उसमें ये कहा है कि एक गांव था, वहां एक लड़की थी जो टाइम के हिसाब से बहुत ज्यादा एडवांस थी। अपना सर पे दुपट्टा नहीं लेती थी, इधर उधर सबके साथ में लड़ती थी, अपने हिसाब से रहती थी, और जो भी उससे शादी करने आता था उसको भगा देती थी। तो गांव वालों ने ये दूसरे गांवों में मुनादी की कि जो भी इससे शादी कर पाएगा उसको हम बहुत सारा दहेज देंगे। बहुत लोग आए, उमेश भी गया अपनी किस्मत आजमाने, लेकिन जाहिर है कोई मौका नहीं मिला, सबको भगा दिया गया। आखिर में एक साहब पहुंचे और उन्होंने शादी कर ली। अब शादी हुई, उसके बाद में बैलगाड़ी में वापसी के लिए उनके गांव के लिए जब रवाना हुए तो गांव वालों ने दहेज रखना चाहा उस बैलगाड़ी में। इन्होंने कहा नहीं, मुझे कोई दहेज नहीं चाहिए, आप 5-6 खाली कनस्तर, पीपे जो होते हैं उनको, खाली कनस्तरों को मेरे इस बैलगाड़ी में रख दीजिए और साथ में एक छड़ी रख लीजिए। गांव वालों ने कहा आप क्या करेंगे इसका। उसने कहा मैं जो भी करूंगा, लेकिन आप ये रख दीजिए। अब रख दिया और उसके बाद में गांव से जब निकला, वो खाली कनस्तर है, आवाज आएगी, ढ ढ ढ करके आवाज आने लगी। अब इन्होंने अपनी छड़ी उठाई, एक कनस्तर को पकड़ा और उसका पीटना शुरू किया। चुप हो जा, नहीं तो तुझे मैं मार मार के दुरुस्त कर दूंगा। उसने कहा चुप होना था, वो उसको खूब पीटा, चिपका दिया और उसके बाद में उसको फेंक दिया। अब उस लेडी ने अपनी आंखें ऐसे करके देखा कि कौन है भाई, ये कहाँ से आ गया। तो लेकिन एनीवे तब भी वो थोड़ी वैसे ही बैठी गई, क्योंकि उसके कोई दुपट्टा उपट्टा सर पे नहीं था, कुछ नहीं था, दुल्हन थी नहीं। उसके बाद में दूसरे कनस्तर का यह हाल हुआ, वो धीरे धीरे उस लेडी का दुपट्टा यहाँ तक पहुंच गया और फिर सर तक पहुंच गया। उस आदमी के गांव की जब सीमा आ गई तो उस आदमी ने कहा देख तू घूंघट कर ले, अदरवाइज तेरा भी यही हाल होगा जो कनस्तर का हुआ है। और जब वो गांव उतरी, गांव के लोग तो वहां खड़े होते कि हम कोई बहुत मॉडर्न बहू को देखने वाले हैं, लेकिन वो वही ट्रेडिशनल बहू के रूप में उतरी। तो ये कहने का मतलब ये है कि हमारे फोक लिटरेचर में भी रेयरली औरत की क्वालिटीज को इस तरह से दर्शाया गया है, लेकिन किसको अप्रिशिएट किया गया है, ट्रेडिशनल वे ऑफ लाइफ को अप्रिशिएट किया गया है। और हमारे राजस्थान में तो आज भी अगर कोई किसी के यहाँ बेटी पैदा होती है, आप अगर उनसे पूछें कि आपके यहाँ कौन क्या हुआ बच्चा, तो कहेंगे घर में भट्टो हुआ है। भट्टा मतलब पत्थर। तो आज भी, आज के जमाने में भी ये है। और एक ठाकुर साहब थे गांव में, रोज बड़े सज बज के निकलते थे घर से अपनी मूंछों पे ताव देते हुए। एक दिन घर से निकले तो मैले कुचैले कपड़े और मूंछे नीचे गिरी हुई। तो उनसे पूछा ठाकुर साहब खनी घम्मा क्या हो गया ठाकुर साहब। तो ठाकुर साहब बोले आज घर में बेटी पैदा हो गई, मतलब आपकी बेटी पैदा हो गई तो आपका जो मान सम्मान है वो भी आपका खत्म हो गया। तो ये कहने का मतलब ये है कि व्हाट वी अप्रिशिएट व्हेन वी रीड दिस ट्रेडिशनल sort of information, but when we listen or when we read anything about advanced or illuminated girls, we also feel कि अरे ये क्या है। मैं अपना एग्जाम्पल बताती हूँ। एक बार मैं कलकत्ता से दिल्ली आ रही थी वापस फ्लाइट से, तो पूरी जो फ्लाइट का क्रू था वीमेन, पायलट भी वीमेन, सभी कोई वीमेन। और पहला थॉट मेरे दिमाग, तो मतलब जेंडर पढ़ाया है मैंने जिंदगी भर, और मेरे पहला थॉट मेरे दिमाग में क्या आया, अरे बाप रे, औरत चलाएगी हवाई जहाज, क्या होगा, हम पहुंचेंगे या नहीं। तो मतलब इस तरह की बातें हम लोग भी इस तरह से ग्रसित हैं अपने उससे विचारों से। तो ये जरूरत है इस चीज की कि हम लोग मतलब इसको बदलें। जैसे वीना दास ने लिखा है, सोशियोलॉजिस्ट, एक जगह पे शी हैज रिटन दैट वंस आई वेंट टू मीट माय फ्रेंड एंड देयर आई सॉ दैट अ लिटिल गर्ल ऑफ 2 years शी वाज क्राइंग and her grandfather was holding her in his hands and trying to silence her, लेकिन वो बच्ची तो रोए जा रही थी। तो आखिर में ग्रैंडफादर ने कहा, ओ बेटा, व्हाई आर यू क्राइंग, यू आर लक्ष्मी। और वो बेचारी बच्ची थक गई होगी, वो एकदम से चुप हो गई। So then this old man, he winked towards these women and said, look, women have to be reminded of their position, they don't know what they are. तो टाइम जो है वो ये है कि we should know what we are, we should not be told what you are, but rather we should be aware of these. So it is not different today. The subject requires more crop, documents have to be read very carefully, and these voices we have to be retrieved from the sources. मैं एक बर्क दहलवी है मॉडर्न पोइट, उन्होंने ज़ेबुनिसा who was औरंगजेब्स डॉटर, उसके बारे में एक उन्होंने वर्स लिखा, उससे मैं समाप्त करूंगी, जो कि कंडीशन ऑफ वीमेन को बताता है। न शमा है न चादर न कब्र पोश, मिट्टी का एक ढेर है इबारत की दास्तां। थैंक यू वेरी मच।